My name is Teacher Jen. What is your name? Hi, Teacher Jen here, and today I would like to talk to you about the Cambly Rating System. There is so much chatter on Facebook and YouTube about the rating system and what it's determined by. Nobody knows. It's some top secret formula that they're using to give us a rating. And that rating is really important because it determines so many factors. It determines what students might want to pick us. It determines maybe how many priority hours become available to you. So, we want to figure out what it is. And since they're not spelling it out for us, I've come up with my own theory. So I'm going to talk to you about 6 things that I think are really important in determining what our rating might be based on. The first one is ignoring calls. If you're on a priority hour and you ignore a call, or even if you're just unavailable and you have a student who has chosen you specifically and you decide that you're going to ignore that call, that might play a role in your rating because you have a student who wants you and you're choosing not to answer it. Now, you may have a very good reason why you don't want to answer it, but by ignoring a call, that may play a role in your rating number. Not showing up for classes. That seems kind of obvious to me. If you don't go to your class and somebody has requested you, a no-show would definitely result in a bad rating, I would think. Number 3, canceling on a student. If a student has a reservation with you, or if you came up to an agreement between yourselves, and then you decide, oh, something came up, I'm going to have to cancel. Even if your student is okay with it, Cambly may not be. Again, this is just my theory, but I definitely think that canceling on a student could play a role in your rating number. Number 4, being late to class. So if you have a lesson scheduled at 8:30 and you show up at 8:31, you are late. If that student has been contacting you and calling and you're not answering, or if it takes a really long time for you to answer because you're not prepared, this might play a role in your overall rating. On the flip side, repeat students. If you have a lot of students who keep requesting you over and over and over, I think this plays a role in it in 2 ways. One, they may see whatever he or she is doing, whatever this teacher is doing, must be good because a lot of students want to keep going back to this teacher. It also works because if you have a repeat student, that repeat student is likely going to give you 5 stars. And that comes into my 6th point, the student rating. Whatever rating that they choose to give you is based on the class itself and how you teach them. So I have some recommendations on how you can improve that student rating with what you do in the classroom. So number 1, for improving that student rating and however many stars that they're going to give you, is the conversation or the lesson. So many students come on Cambly, and it's really marketed, and a lot of teachers really focus on just doing conversation. So when students contact you and you say, how do you want to learn today? How can I help you today? What would you like to work on? Most students, if they are a first-time student with you, they're going to say, oh, let's just have a conversation. And a lot of teachers think, this is a great idea. Let's just have a conversation. We'll talk about the weather. We'll talk about what you had for dinner. And the conversation could be perfectly pleasant, and you might have a good time. And that student may still give you maybe 4 stars or 3 stars because they didn't learn anything. Because so many Cambly teachers use this method, what happens to that student is in every lesson they are saying the same things. I live in this city, I live in this country, this is my work, this is my school. they're talking about the same things over and over. And by only focusing on conversation, you're allowing for that student to only use the language that they are most comfortable with. They're not learning very much new vocabulary. They might learn a word or two, they might learn a phrase or two because they hear you say it, but they're not grasping a whole new entity of the learning experience. As a student who is on Cambly because they want to learn more and improve their language, if we're not offering them corrections and we aren't giving them new content, then why are they here? Now, some of them do just want to have conversation, and that's okay. But I really think that you should try to stretch them outside of conversation and see how that goes. Some of them will completely resist it, and those are the ones that you know they are there just for conversation, and they will still give you a 5-star rating as long as you have a good time. Making sure that you smile while you're talking and smile while you're listening. If you are actively listening, sit there with a pleasant look on your face, nod your head, agree with them, add input, and that's great. The other thing that I find is really effective and students really love is they want to be corrected. So if they are talking, don't stop them, don't interrupt them. Just wait for them to finish the sentence, and while they are talking, type into the chat box whatever word that they mispronounced. And when they're done, say, I'd like to help you with a couple of words, and let's work on your pronunciation. And you send over the words, let them read them, let them practice saying them. You repeat the words a few times, let them repeat the words a few times. If there are certain sounds that they struggle with, then you help them to figure out what they need to do with their mouth so that they can say the words properly. If you don't know this technique, do a YouTube search, and you can say how to help a student with the L sound, how to help a student with the TH sound. There are several. A lot of our Asian students, they really struggle with the W sound. In fact, they omit it altogether if it starts the word. In words like wood, they say ood because they don't hear a difference. So when you're teaching them how to do the W sound, you ask them to put their hand in front of their face and say the word, and that they should feel the breath on their hand. Wood, wood. They should feel the puff in their cheeks. When they're saying the TH sound, tell them to put the tongue between their teeth like this and ask them to say simple words that they're used to, like thank you and this and that. And as they become comfortable with those, you can change it to words like teeth, so it's at the end of the word. These are simple little techniques that a lot of teachers don't take the time to do with our students, and they make a big difference to the student because they haven't heard it before. So these are really great techniques to make your student feel like while they are in your classroom that they are learning something. So figuring out where they need help with their pronunciation is key. If you have a student who is a great speaker, and we have a lot of those, they've had a lot of practice, just continue to praise them. Tell them the things that they're doing right. Say, wow, I have a lot of students who really struggle with the TH sound, but you've really mastered it. Great job. And then they feel more confident. The other way to expand their learning in your classroom is to work on things like the Cambly Lessons. A lot of teachers don't talk about these. I try to teach from them almost exclusively. The lessons, and if you don't know where they are, send me a comment. I am happy to provide a link to help you figure out how to get to them. But these lessons are great. If you just go through them, the instructions are pretty much on there on how to explain them. And if something is a little bit confusing to you, just take a minute, read through it, and then explain to your student why our grammar is the way that it is. If you have a student who maybe isn't comfortable doing articles, or they're beyond them, their English is really good and they just want to learn new vocabulary, we have options for that too. So we have articles, and you and the student can read the article together and then discuss it. We have discussion questions and conversation questions. So you can send your student the list of discussion questions and say, hey, which discussion topic are you most interested in? Oh, you want to talk about vacations? That sounds like a great idea. And then in this discussion topic, it starts with vocabulary and expressions. You can explain some of these new expressions and new vocabulary words to them. Then you have a discussion with guided questions, and they are to answer using the vocabulary they just learned. So this is a great way to expand their vocabulary, and they're still having conversation. It's just a little bit more guided, and they are not having the same conversation that they've had with the past 6 tutors. Interview questions. A lot of our students are on Cambly because they are trying to interview for a job that requires them to speak in English. Maybe that's here in America, or maybe that's in Canada, England, or maybe it's in their own country, but they are in need of an English speaker. So interview questions is a great way to help them with their interview skills while helping them with English. And you're able to assist them with making sure that they are equipped with the right language. I often recommend to my students the resource of a thesaurus. Most of our students are very familiar with a dictionary, but they are not familiar with a thesaurus. Maybe you aren't either. Look it up. The thesaurus will give them an ability to expand their vocabulary using more unique words. Many students use words like great a whole lot. My house is great, my city is great, my job is great. When they go on a thesaurus, they can look up the word great and find a whole bunch of other words that they can use in its place. And this will improve their vocabulary and help their interview process. Test prep. Test prep for the IELTS or the TOEFL, these are a great resource for our students who are preparing for these tests. Not only are all of these resources that I just mentioned, are they great for your time with them in the classroom, but by giving them the link and showing them how to navigate them on their own, you're also empowering your student to be able to continue to learn when they are not on the computer with a tutor. They're able to do their own homework. So if you have a student who really wants to focus on conversation, you can improve their subscription membership experience by giving them homework and say, next time we will talk about this discussion, and you send them one. It doesn't matter what it is. Just send them a topic and say, review this, and when we talk next time, we will discuss it. What that's going to do is 2 things. It's going to encourage that student to learn outside of the classroom, and it's also going to give you a pretty good shot that that student is going to book with you again. So I hope these tips have helped you to give your student a better experience, and that will hopefully improve your rating. If your student has a better experience, then of course they are going to want to use you again. And if they want to use you again, then they are likely to give you a higher rating. If they give you a higher rating, then Cambly is going to give you a higher rating. So these are all factors. Now, I agree that probably technical issues play a role in the rating, but probably only if the student agrees that it's a problem. Cambly is not likely to know if you have a technical problem unless the student says, hey, I couldn't understand anything in my class because my teacher had a problem. If your problem is really insignificant, the student isn't going to care about it if they're still learning in your class. So if you feel that your lighting isn't perfect, or if your microphone isn't clear, which I've learned mine isn't, I'm going to get a new one, sorry. Or if you learn that your picture quality maybe isn't great, a student who is kind of bored in your class will probably give you a low rating, and these will be the reasons why. But if they are learning, then they are going to still give you a high rating because they are having a good time. I always keep flashcards on hand. When I have a student who is at a basic level of English, I'm not going to do the alphabet with them, but if I want to say, let's practice the S sound, then I'll have it up just so that they know exactly which letter I'm asking them to say. I got these at Dollar Tree. For a student, if I want to practice their pronunciation and I want to see what words that they can read as well as how they pronounce words, I use these cute little cards. A lot of them are basic words, but that gives me an opportunity to praise my student and say, "You're doing a great job. Wow, that's great." And then when some words are a little bit more difficult, it's harder for them to say watch and make sure that they're saying all of those letter sounds. So practicing those letter sounds with your student is going to improve their experience and their learning. It's also going to improve their language, which is why they're on Cambly to begin with. So I hope these tips have helped you. I hope that your rating improves. If you have any comments, please message me below. I'll be happy to respond with any way that I can help you. If you're still considering joining Cambly and you don't already have a referral code, I'll put my referral code down at the bottom and you're welcome to use me. If you have any questions about Cambly, I'm happy to answer them. You can also watch some of my other videos about my Cambly experience, and I look forward to seeing you on the platform. Have a great day. Bye.